Well, welcome back again to Sunday Reflection, this time for the 19th Sunday in Ordinary Time, which also in the liturgical calendar would be the Feast of St. Lawrence if it weren't on Sunday. And I think maybe St. Lawrence, but also definitely today's readings, place before us the question of patience. Patience based on faith and hope. First reading from Wisdom talks about how our ancestors, the people of Israel, knew about the Passover in advance, and therefore they waited with confidence because they had faith in God's deliverance and they had the courage. Especially the second reading from the letter to the Hebrews talks about Abraham. And in particular, it reminds us that God called Abraham to leave his family, his father's home, all the places that were familiar, and to go to a place that God would show him. And we can imagine Abraham saying, "That's great, where are we going?" And God says, "Just go. And I will show you as you go what you need to know, when you need to know." And he also talks about the birth of Isaac to Abraham and Sarah at God's promise when they were both far beyond the age of childbearing, and yet they trusted that God could do what he promised. Do we trust that? Do we have that virtue of hope based on faith? Pope Benedict XVI, in his beautiful encyclical on hope, tells us that hope is the future brought into the present. And in our case, it's eternal life, the life of God in heaven, brought into the way we judge the value of things here and now and how we conduct ourselves here and now. And Jesus is telling us in the Gospel of Luke, prepare money bags for yourselves that do not wear out, an inexhaustible treasure in heaven that no thief can reach, no moth destroy. Are we doing that? Are we having that hope that Jesus' promises to us are real? He said, "Let not your hearts be troubled. In my Father's house there are many mansions," and that he was going to prepare a place for us. And when it was prepared, he would come and take us with him so that where he is, we also will be. Do we trust that promise? If so, are we, by our generosity, by our almsgiving, by our help for others, storing up that treasure in heaven? People are always concerned about building up their retirement accounts, but they're going to end sometime because we're going to end the life here. Are we storing up that retirement account which never ends and is abundant in its blessings? So we need to be patient for that. And that patience sometimes is putting up with the trials and the tribulations of this life because we know there is a better life to come. So are we patient? I've never heard anybody say, "Yes, I have enough patience, I don't need to work on that." I think all of us realize I need to work on patience. But patience needs to have a reason for it. And that reason is faith in Jesus' promises and the hope that brings the realization and our expectation that those promises will be fulfilled into this present life. And St. Lawrence, whose feast would be August 10th otherwise, is a good example of that. Lawrence was a deacon in the Church of Rome in the time of persecution, and they told him to bring all the church's treasures to the authorities. So he gathered the widows, the sick, the orphans, the lame, all those that the church was caring for, because of course there was no social services net, and said, "These are the true treasures of the church." And of course, the story tells us he was martyred by being roasted to death on a griddle. It takes hope and patience, because the root word for patience, don't forget, is the same word as suffering, endurance, seeing something through. So are we prepared to take the suffering that might come, to see things through because we are confident in Jesus' promises to us, and so we're storing up treasures for that retirement account in heaven by our goodness, our generosity, our tithing.